They don't fear your anger. They don't fear your words. They don't even fear your power. What they fear, what truly stops them, is when you stop needing their approval entirely. That silence you carry, that stillness in your eyes, that calm that never breaks even when they push, even when they provoke, even when they try to crack the surface of who you are. That is what they cannot understand. That is what they cannot control. And everything they cannot control, they eventually learn to respect. You've been here before. You've sat in a room full of people and felt completely invisible. Not because you were small, not because you were weak, but because somewhere along the way you learned to make yourself quiet. You learned to shrink. You learned that being loud gets you attention, but being real gets you dismissed. And so you carried it silently. Someone spoke over you in a meeting. You said nothing. Someone dismissed your idea without hearing it. You smiled and nodded. Someone crossed a line you'd drawn so many times it had almost disappeared. And you told yourself it didn't matter. You told yourself you were being mature. But it wasn't maturity. It was fear. Not fear of them. Something deeper. The fear of what happens when you finally stop tolerating it. The fear of being misunderstood. The fear of seeming difficult, cold, or too intense. You've been swallowing fire your entire life and calling it peace. And somewhere inside you, in that place you visit at 2 a.m., when the noise finally stops, you already know the truth. You were never the problem. You were just too aware to fight the way broken people fight. You felt too much to stoop to what they were doing. And that sensitivity, that depth, it was never a weakness. It was evidence. Evidence of something rare growing inside you that most people will never develop, but no one told you that. So you kept shrinking, keep reading, because what comes next will change the way you see yourself forever. Her. E is what psychology tells us, not the soft, comfortable version, but the real version. The human brain is a threat detection machine. Every single interaction you have, the people around you are unconsciously running a calculation. They're asking one silent question. What will this person tolerate? Not consciously. They don't sit down and plan it. It happens beneath the surface, in the primitive architecture of the mind where instinct lives. They push. They probe. They test, sometimes gently, sometimes aggressively, and they are always watching how you respond. And here is what they have learned about you. That you respond, that you explain yourself, that you justify, that you soften your edges to make others comfortable. That when pushed, you either react loudly or disappear quietly, and either way, you signal the same thing. I am available for this. This is called a behavioral threshold, and you have been advertising yours for years. Every time you laughed off an insult to keep the peace, you lowered your threshold. Every time you over-explained your boundaries instead of simply enforcing them, you lowered your threshold. Every time you returned to someone who had already shown you who they were hoping this time would be different, you didn't just lower your threshold, you removed it entirely. And people, consciously or not, will always rise to the level of disrespect you allow. This is not cynicism. This is the architecture of human social behavior, studied, documented, ancient. The most respected figures in history, the ones people still speak of in hushed tones, the ones whose very presence changed the atmosphere in a room, they did not earn that respect by demanding it. They earned it by needing nothing from the people around them. They earned it through the one thing that cannot be faked, cannot be performed, and cannot be purchased. Psychological sovereignty, the unshakable sense of self that exists independently of W. Had anyone think, says, or does to you, you cannot fake this. People sense imitation immediately. But when it is real, when someone walks into a room carrying genuine internal authority, something shifts. The air changes. The conversations change. And without a single word being spoken, a message is delivered. This person is different. This person cannot be moved. Here is the truth that no one tells you. Respect is not something you ask for. It is not something you negotiate. It is not something you earn through kindness or patience or by being understanding enough of the person who keeps crossing your lines. Respect is something you architect. It is built quietly, invisibly, with every single decision you make about what you will and will not accept. It is built not in moments of confrontation, but in the 1,000 small moments no one else sees. The moment you decide not to reply to the message sent to destabilize you. The moment you leave the conversation that was designed, to diminish you. The moment you choose your own peace over and over without announcing it to anyone. Respect is built in the silence. And here is what nobody tells you about silence. Silence is not absence. Silence is presence compressed, concentrated, and far more powerful than any word ever spoken in anger. When you react, you give people a roadmap. You show them where your wounds are. You reveal which buttons, when pressed, will produce noise from you. And once they have that map, once they know which words make you defensive, which situations make you desperate, which people make you abandon your own dignity, they will use it. Not because they are evil, because that is what unaware people do. But when you go silent, when you withdraw your reactions, when you stop performing pain for an audience that is secretly feeding on it, something profound happens. They lose the map. And a person without a map, standing in front of someone they cannot read, someone who will, not react, someone who watches everything and reveals nothing, that person becomes uncertain. Uncertainty is the beginning of respect. Here is the other truth. The people who disrespect you are not powerful. Read that again. The person who speaks over you, who dismisses you, who tests your limits, who treats your kindness like weakness, they are not operating from strength. They are operating from fear. Fear of being irrelevant. Fear of your quiet competence. Fear of the thing they sense in you but cannot name. Fear of what it means that you can sit in silence while they need constant noise to feel alive. Dominance that requires performance is not dominance. It is desperation wearing a mask. Real power never announces itself. Real power makes the room feel it before a single word is spoken. So how do you become someone people fear to disrespect? Not fear as in terror, not fear as in aggression, but that other kind of fear, the quiet, respectful unease of standing in front of someone you instinctively know you cannot manipulate. It begins with a single decision. The decision to stop explaining yourself, not rudely, not coldly, simply completely. You do not owe anyone a justification for your boundaries. You do not owe anyone a reason for your silence. You do not owe anyone access to your inner world simply because they demand entry. When you stop explaining, something changes in how people perceive you. Explanations signal anxiety. They signal the need for approval, for understanding, for acceptance. And when you remove them, when you simply act without narrating, you communicate something far more powerful. I don't need you to understand. I don't need you to agree. I am not asking for your permission. The second shift is learning the language of consequence over confrontation. Weak people react. Powerful people disappear. Understand what that means. When someone disrespects you, the amateur move, the one that has never once worked, is to react emotionally, to raise your voice, to send the long message, to make sure they know how much they hurt you. This is handing them a weapon and asking them to use it responsibly. The advanced move, the one that operates on the frequency most people never find, is to simply adjust your proximity. You do not need to explain why you are no longer as available. You do not need to announce your withdrawal with a dramatic speech. You simply quietly, calmly, without malice recalibrate. You become slightly less present, slightly harder to reach. The warmth that was once freely given is now distributed differently, not withheld in cruelty, redirected in wisdom. And they will notice. They always notice. Not because you made them notice. Because absence is the most eloquent thing a person can say. The third transformation is perhaps the most difficult. You must become genuinely indifferent to being misunderstood. This is not cold. This is not arrogance. This is the epist form of self-respect available to a human being, because here is what the need to be understood really is. At its psychological core, it is the remnant of a child who needed to be seen, a child who discovered that being misunderstood meant being unloved. And so the adult carries that equation forward. If they don't understand me, they will leave me. And if they leave me, I am alone. And if I am alone, you finish the sentence. You've lived it. But here is the freedom waiting on the other side of that fear. Most people do not have the capacity to understand you, not because you are superior, but because depth cannot be perceived by those who have never gone there. You cannot explain the ocean to someone who has only ever stood at the shore. And when you stop trying, when you release the desperate need to be correctly seen by those who are not equipped to see you, something extraordinary happens. You become unreachable, not physically, psychologically unreachable. And an unreachable person, a person who cannot be destabilized, cannot be manipulated through their need for approval, cannot be cracked open by the withholding of validation. That person is the most powerful person in any room they enter. If this is already reaching something in you, pause, subscribe to this channel, because what you're feeling right now is rare. Most people will scroll past this. You didn't. That already tells you something about who you are. Let's talk about what they never see coming. The moment you change, truly change, not performatively, not temporarily, but at the level of identity, the people around you will not celebrate it. They will resist it. The ones who benefited from your tolerance will call you cold. The ones who fed on your over-explaining will call you arrogant. The ones who mistook your patience for permission will call you difficult. And you will feel it the pull to go back, to soften again, to say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. Let me make this easier for you. Do not apologize for your evolution. Do not shrink back into the shape that was comfortable for people who were diminishing you. This moment, the moment when they push back against your growth, is not a sign that you've gone wrong. It is confirmation that you are going right. Because only someone who was profiting from your smallness would be threatened by your expansion. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them call you different. Let them say you've changed, because you have. And the you that existed before, the one who laughed off insults and swallowed fire and made itself invisible to keep others comfortable, that version of you deserved better than what it was getting. You deserved better. Say that to yourself slowly. You, with all your depth, all your sensitivity, all your emotional intelligence that was labeled as weakness by people too shallow to understand it, you deserved better. And the life that is weighty, NG, on the other side of your transformation, it is not built on aggression. It is not built on coldness. It is not built on a hardened heart that stopped feeling. It is built on sovereignty. It is built on the radical, terrifying, beautiful decision to value your own peace above the discomfort of those who benefited from your pain. There are people in this world who walk into rooms and something shifts. The conversations become more careful. The energy becomes more deliberate. No one can explain it and no one tries. They simply feel it, that unnamed, undeniable sense that this person is not to be tested. They didn't build that with aggression. They built it with years of quiet choices. Years of choosing themselves when everyone expected them to choose the crowd. Years of silence when noise would have been easier. Years of disappearing when explaining would have felt safer. They built it by mastering the rarest skill in human psychology. The art of being completely, totally hakeably okay without your approval, without your validation, without your acceptance, and without your presence. That is the kind of person who is never disrespected twice. Not because they punish disrespect, because they make disrespect feel pointless. When you push someone and they do not move, not dramatically, not with anger, but simply and completely do not move, the push dies in the air. It finds no purchase. It reveals nothing. It changes nothing. And after enough attempts, people stop pushing. Not because they respect your rules, because they have discovered that you are beyond their reach. And to be beyond someone's reach psychologically, emotionally, energetically, is to live in a kind of freedom most human beings never taste. It is the freedom of the person who has nothing to prove, nothing to defend, and nothing to fear from the opinions of those who have not yet done the work to understand them. This is not arrogance. This is arrival. The arrival at you, ourself, at the full, undiluted, uncompromised version of who you actually are, beneath the conditioning, beneath the need for approval, beneath the childhood fear of being too much or not enough. You were never too much. You were always exactly enough. And the people who made you feel otherwise were simply not enough for you. You didn't find this video by accident. Something in you is ready, not tomorrow. Not when life gets quieter or easier or less complicated. Now. Right now, in the exact circumstances you are in, with all the difficulty, all the unresolved tension, all the people who have not yet caught up to who you are becoming. Now. The work doesn't begin when the conditions are perfect. The work is the imperfect conditions. The work is choosing, one more time, to honor what you know about yourself, even when no one around you can see it yet. If something in this script reached the part of you that has been waiting, the part that knew, somewhere beneath all the noise, that you were capable of something quieter and more powerful than the life you've been living, then do one thing. Stay. Keep watching. Keep learning. Keep building the internal architecture that the world can feel but cannot see. Because the version of you that is coming, the one on the other side of this work, that person does not need to demand respect. That person simply receives it as a natural consequence of who they have become. Subscribe if this found you at the right time. Share it with the one person you know who is ready but hasn't said it out loud yet. And most importantly, take one thing from this into your next interaction. One moment of chosen silence where you would have reacted. One moment of stillness where you would have explained. One small act of self-sovereignty. It compounds. Everything compounds. And one day sooner than you think you will walk into a room and you will feel it. The shift. The silence before people choose their words more careful. Ellie, the moment someone looks at you and changes their approach without understanding why. That moment is yours. It has always been yours. You just had to stop giving it away. The most dangerous person in any room isn't the loudest one. It's the one who hasn't spoken yet and doesn't need to.